1, 2, 3, 4. If you can do all your stuff, what can figure it out? That's how it chooses you.
Hi, Claire.
Hello, Teresa.
You look so lovely this morning.
Well, thank you.
Fresh-faced. Do I see eye makeup?
Yeah, I went and saw people yesterday.
What? We'll have to talk about that. Who did you see?
It was our friend and friend of the podcast, Sandra's birthday.
Oh, nice.
And I went to a small gathering of all fully vaccinated folks.
Oh, nice.
It was a backyard party with a band. It was fun. It was really fun. I figured what we should maybe really talk about is how I ended up in the emergency room Thursday night.
No! Well, we should definitely talk about that. Oh, I'm so sorry.
First of all, everything's fine.
Yeah, no suspense. She didn't call me, so it wasn't like... I imagine that if she had to call someone, it would be me. But that may not be true, because she lives so far away now. But, like, if I didn't get a call, I know she's not dying.
Yeah. It was actually really stupid.
Yeah, most emergency room visits are predicated on stupidity.
We were working on the garden Thursday evening, and I was planting my cabbages, and I don't know why I keep planting cabbages. I love them, but there is always some kind of drama, usually not physical harm, usually like, caterpillars.
You know that cabbages are all about the drama.
And you'd think they wouldn't. They seem like such a hearty, solid, stable vegetable. But no. They love the drama. It's what makes them so tasty. I was planting my cabbages, and we had made some cages, small metal cages earlier in the year for pest control in the garden. And I punctured my arm on one. It was the tiniest little puncture. But suddenly I thought, when was the last time I had a tetanus shot?
When you damage your hull, you definitely need to go and review your vaccination records.
Exactly. And the answer is,
Before I left my parents' house.
Which is not the way to conduct yourself. And, it's certainly not my first puncture wound out here on the farm. So I thought, oh, crap. Well, it was after 6. So we tried to go to urgent care near us. And by near, I mean 25 minutes away. They closed at 7. I called them and I said, hey, I'm on my way. I'm 25 minutes away. I'll be there at like 7:05. They were like, nope, we lock the doors at 7. I had done my research. I knew that there was another urgent care in Fort Collins that closed at 8. So I got there at 7:25 and a security guard met me at the door and said, we closed at 7, ma'am. He was super cool. I was like, what do you mean? Google said 8. He goes, yeah, they need to change that. And then Tim points at their door,
right,
which says closes at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just need a tetanus shot. I said, is there anywhere else I can go? He said, well, the emergency room's over there.
Ugh.
I thought, well, I'm not going to the emergency room. So I went to the emergency room.
Well, I'm definitely not doing that. Okay.
So I went to the emergency room, talked to them for a minute, decided to leave the emergency room, got on the phone with a family member who is a doctor who had been kind of coaching me through all, was like, yes, you need to go. I said, I don't want to go. They're going to charge me like 3 times the price. I said, I can go to urgent care near me tomorrow morning. And she said, I do not recommend. Medically, do not recommend this. And I was like, but I'll probably be fine, right? And she said, I don't know. And when a doctor says, I don't know.
Right, to that question.
Yeah. So back to the emergency room, got it done. The staff was absolutely wonderful. It was a pretty efficient experience. Luckily, nothing crazy was going on there. And then they said, we'll bill you. So who knows?
I mean, sometimes you get out of there for less than you thought you would. It's not always a complete financial disaster.
Yeah.
I'm just going to maybe put some positivity and optimism. I'm very sorry that you had to do it. I'm sorry you will have a medical bill from an American hospital. I mean, our international listeners know that, or I mean, you should know. Do you not know that the American healthcare system is totally fucked? It is.
Well, and of course, that's what this triggered.
Yeah.
So it turns into Tim and I just going, why? And I said, okay, look, finally, I was like, stop. We need to take care of this now.
Yeah.
So that I am okay.
Yeah.
And then maybe we should talk about what steps and actions we can take to try and make this better in this country. Like if we're really upset about it, let's do something, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it totally triggered everything. And I was like, we need to stop this now. He was like, you're right. I was like, we can have our principles and our opinions, but we just need to go to the emergency room.
Let's refocus and get task-based again. And we'll break out into a larger theoretical conversation a little later.
Exactly. We had our poor dog with us the whole time.
Oh, I bet she was so good. She's like, I'm bored.
And we had already taken a trip to town that day with her. So she was like, so I guess 5 hours in the car is just what's happening.
Right. She's like, oh, I guess we live in the car now. I imagine she was great because she's a great dog.
Mm-hmm. But the doctor told me, he said, this is crazy. He said, I started medical school in 1986. He's like, my entire career, I've never seen this, but just last year, someone died in this hospital of tetanus.
Whoa.
He's like, absolutely, you're doing the right thing being here. And just seriously, God bless the medical professionals out there just fighting the odds right now and trying to help us despite the fact that we are fucking stupid.
And also, they're not unaware of how jacked it is. They know better than anyone. And yet they're still in there trying to make people's lives better and helping them. So thank you very much. Yeah. Well, that's an adventure.
That happened.
Fucking cabbage.
It was a long week.
Yeah.
A lot happened.
I feel that way too. I had a great conversation with my sister 2 days ago because she sent her daughter to college. It is that time of year.
Oh, her full freshman?
Her little freshman. I mean, I think she's technically a sophomore because she did take a bunch of credits online and in like socially distanced environments last year. She graduated from high school 2 years ago, but then COVID sort of jacked her freshman year, essentially. So she sent her off, and she and I talked that night. She's like, my house is so quiet. I miss her so much. My baby's gone. I don't know what my life is. I was like, what? That's a thing. Like when you send your child to college, that's it. It's like the end of something for real. And that transition, or maybe, transition rather than an end, right? But that's really intense. So she and I had a really nice conversation about that. It was a lovely way to connect with her. She's entering this new place in her life, and her life has been pretty stable for a long time. So that's exciting, like to be able to talk to her while she's making different choices and figuring out what her life is. That was super great. I just told Claire a really horrible story about my mom, and the takeaway for us is that we both wish that we had parents. Like people who loved us and were concerned for us and actively worked for our benefit and wanted to know us and took time to get to know us. Like, yeah, so I think that's what a lot of why we're here. That's a lot of what we do for each other. We've talked about that before.
We parent ourselves and we parent each other. Mm-hmm. For me, it's just, I wish I had someone that I felt was an adult that I could trust, like consistently.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things I love about my mom, but she just isn't that parenting type. And she was at a certain point. When I was younger, she was. I don't know, something shifted and it's like, when I'm going through something and I need comfort, I do tend to turn to you, Teresa, more, or this family member that's a doctor. There are people that are good in a crisis. I'm surrounded by them, but they're just not the people I expect to be good in a crisis, which is your parent. But as long as you have those people, that's really great. We're really fortunate to have that.
Yes, I feel very, very lucky that I have you to call when I'm a mess. So just tell me everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. Everyone, welcome to the podcast. It chooses you.
Hi.
I'm Claire Patton.
I'm Teresa Sparks. She and I, that one over there, we talk about things that interest us, and we hope that you are also interested by them.
We enjoy doing this podcast. We are so glad you're here today. Please remember to like, subscribe, and download our episodes if you enjoy this. Also, guess what? Little old us, we are on Patreon. You can find us under the name It Chooses You.
You can check out all of our episodes on our Patreon page, and we will have some special bonus content coming in the next few weeks. So stay tuned as though this is an old-timey radio show. 98.9, The Wolf. What are we going to talk about today, Claire? Do you know?
No, wait. I was like, uh-oh. Was I supposed to do this?
You're like, wait a minute. I thought I sent a very clear email to you about the order of who was doing what the next 3 weeks. And you responded and said, okay. The look of panic on your face was so great.
Shit.
You guys, it was as though Claire's face was still bright and shining and smiling, but you could see that it became a shell of a smile, and her brain behind it was darkness and figuring out what went wrong and how we now need to fix a problem. Yeah, it was really cute.
My synapses were firing. Well, first I went into panic mode, then I was trying to remember what I possibly did wrong. Like, where did I fuck up?
Yeah.
Oh shit. I guess we're talking about Community for an hour.
I mean, we could.
So I do have one clue, which was this text you sent me yesterday.
Uh-huh. Read it to the people.
So I get this text from Teresa yesterday that says, does the phrase fighting girlfriend mean anything to you? If not, good. So I, of course, texted back and said, that means nothing to me. I'm now super intrigued. So my one clue is fighting girlfriend. Now, you capitalized the F and the G.
I did.
So I'm like, is this a ship? Is this an airplane? Is this a novel? Is this a movie I don't know about? I don't know. And who's the girlfriend fighting? Is she fighting her partner? Is she fighting everything?
Yes, so your instinct is correct, because if you guess I'm going to talk about a vessel of some kind, there's a pretty good probability that that's going to pan out for you. I'm obsessed with transportation that people name, okay? I really like it. I like everything about it. I am going to tell you today, we're going to talk about this woman. I have definitely practiced how to say her last name, but I'm probably only going to say it 4 times, because she's Russian, y'all, and they don't mess around with the total lack of vowels. We're going to talk today about Mariya Oktyabrskaya. Mariya was a Soviet tank driver and mechanic who fought on the Eastern Front against the Nazis in World War II.
Okay, excellent.
We're going to tell her story today. I learned about her from rejectedprincesses.com. Mm-hmm. Do you know? Oh my God. You guys, please go read everything on that website, buy all of their merch. The idea apparently started because they made a list of princesses Disney would never choose, right? Rejected princesses. It's a collection of stories of badass women from history. So we're probably going to talk about every single person on that website at some point.
I will say, unknown to you, Teresa, there's about 5 episodes that were inspired by that website. So.
Nice. Rejected Princesses says about Mariya, when the stars are all burned out and human beings are but fairy tales told by robots, somewhere there will be a list of the toughest women who ever lived. And near the top will be Sergeant Mariya Oktyabrskaya, the first woman to win the Hero of the Soviet Union award.
Yeah.
Mariya was born a serf in 1905 into a poor Ukrainian farming family on the Crimean Peninsula. The Crimean Peninsula forms a part of the northern border of the Black Sea, and it's squished between the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. It's a peninsula, but it has a very narrow isthmus, so it functions as an island, and it sort of has a culture of its own, partially because of that. It's also, historically, a major trading area, because Greeks to the west and Ottoman Turks to the south. Alex Johnson at Museum Hack puts it like this. Mariya was born into the medieval slave social class in 1905. So let's say she wanted to take a walk. No. Tough shit. Her feudal landlord said she couldn't leave. In 1905. Like, not to belabor the point, but that was the 20th century. Okay? So Mariya was a 12-year-old medieval peasant living in the Russian Empire when communism happened, right? The Bolsheviks seized power in 1917. And she got into Bolshevism pretty hard, as you would if you were previously considered an accessory to a piece of land.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about what a serf is and the restrictions on your life when you were born into that class, like, you understand the rise of Bolshevism and communism a little better, maybe. Because it sits in the middle of all of these different cultures and peoples, if there's a war in the area, Crimea is involved. It's just too important strategically to not be. So, like, if war was a party, Crimea is the kitchen. Like, everyone ends up there. Mm-hmm. The weather, I wanted to, like, give a sense of, like, the, sense in the air where she grew up, and I went a little too far down like a botany path. And I was like, I don't know if describing what a flower smells like is the best use of our time. So it tends to be in the 80s in the summer and the 40s in winter. It's like a lot of America. It's somewhere between temperate and subtropical in its climate, but it has a lot of elevation change. So elevation is actually more important to the weather there than climate, right? Than the latitude, which we understand in Colorado. It's September in Boulder, it's October in Nederland. Mariya was one of 10 children born into this peasant family. Before the Second World War, she had the kind of jobs people in the newly created working class have, in a cannery, as a telephone operator. In 1925, she married a Soviet army officer named Mariya Oktyabrskaya. She became Mariya Oktyabrskaya. They actually took that last name. He had a different last name before. They took it in honor of the October Revolution. That's how into it they were. After she married him, she became involved in the Military Wives Council and was trained as a nurse in the army. She learned how to drive, how to shoot a machine gun. She's basically like, I'm going to learn everything I can. I wasn't allowed to leave the property before, and now I have access to learning things. Yes, please, I would like to learn how to throw that grenade. Thanks, hon.
She was just going to soak it in.
Once she had access, she went and she did everything she could. And I think it's really funny. There's a piece in, it's like Russia Today, which is definitely it's a state-owned Russian documentary service. So it's a propaganda network, which I did consult because I thought it was appropriate. If we're going to talk about a Russian woman from history, like, let's look at what the propaganda says about her. This page about her talks about how neat her house was and how beautiful her needlework and her clothes were. You and I trust ladies who sew. This podcast trusts women who sew.
Definitely.
This emphasis on her skill with housekeeping, I think, is definitely a way to placate fragile men.
Yeah, right.
Like, sure, she can throw a grenade, but look at how delicate her needlework is. We can't just let her be an amazing fighter, right? She also has to have a clean kitchen, which is just too much to ask, okay? When the Eastern Front of World War II opened in 1941, Mariya was evacuated to Tomsk in Siberia, which is significantly closer to Mongolia than to Moscow. It's really far into the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
So we know Siberia is the middle of nowhere. And in my mind, when I hear that, I always think of like frozen tundra. But she was just north of Mongolia, which means she was in the same sort of temperate to subtropical climate that she was in before. She's just 1,000 miles east.
Wow.
Of where all the fighting was. So when they're evacuated, of course, I'm not a historian, as I say every single time I tell a story from history, but isn't it interesting that you can just take an entire population, like most of the people in Russia live next to Europe. Like they live in that strip of land that connects them to Poland or whatever, right? Belarus. You can just remove everybody and just send them out into the tens of thousands of square miles of Siberian forest. I mean, they might be hungry sometimes, but there's no fighting going on there. Never get involved in a land war in Asia. I thought that was super cool. So she's been evacuated with her husband, and suddenly she's, 1,000 miles from anything she'd ever known. And like, how exciting must that be for someone who was born tied to a piece of land? For context, the battles on the Eastern Front in the Second World War, Wikipedia says they constituted the largest military confrontation in history. I didn't learn a lot about it in school. I don't know if other people did. But there was immense loss of life due to combat, starvation, exposure, disease, massacres. Of the estimated 70 to 85 million deaths attributed to World War II, around 30 million of them occurred on the Eastern Front, including about 9 million children. It was just absolutely brutal. And this is one of the ways that Stalin is the person who's orchestrating this. The tactic seems to have been just throw people at it because we have nothing but people. We have so many people. By the time of the Battle of Stalingrad, which went from August 1942 to February 1943, right, a 6-month battle in a city. Just imagine that first. It was a huge turning point in the war and the start of the Nazi defeat. It's characterized really just so great. I love this movie anyway, but there's an excellent scene in the movie Enemy at the Gates, which is about a sniper played by Jude Law, a very talented country boy sniper. Rachel Weisz plays Tanya Chernova, who is a Russian-American who went to Belarus to get her grandparents out of Russia. So by the time she reached the place her grandparents lived in Belarus, the Germans had already killed them. And so since she was there, she's like, well, I'll just join the resistance then. Fuck you guys. In that movie, Jude Law crosses the Volga under heavy fire on a troop transport as he and all of his fellow soldiers are being frantically equipped to go fight in the city across the river. There's a sergeant shouting instructions. He says, 1 rifle for every 2 men. The one with the rifle shoots. The one without the rifle follows him. When the one with the rifle gets killed, the one who is following picks up the rifle.
Wow.
So there it is. Soviet military tactics.
Oh, man.
Keep moving forward. Yes, you're going to die. You don't. Go, go, go.
That's harsh.
It's really harsh. And imagine being an 18-year-old soldier hearing that. You've just been on a troop transport and Nazi planes are shooting at you. You've seen half the people on your transport be shot and killed by machine gun fire on your way across the river. So only half of you make it, and then you get there and you don't even get a gun. So while living in Tomsk, she learned that her husband had been killed fighting Nazis near Kiev in 1941, almost 2 years earlier. The news made her real mad, both because she loved this man and now he's dead, and also because it took 2 years. It's not like they didn't know where she was, right? He was an officer, and they had sent her to a place. They knew where she was, but it just, Apparently, war disrupts communication, Claire. Who knew?
You heard it here first.
Right.
We broke the news. I mean, that's horrible. I can't even imagine. And then 2 years ago, well, I should have been mourning for 2 years, and that's terrible.
I think there's something about not only finding out that your life has changed, but finding out that your life actually changed 2 years ago.
And you're the last one to know.
Exactly. After that, she became determined to fight some Nazis. She's like, this is it. I'm going to avenge his death. I'm going to war.
She's out for blood.
She filed an appeal to the local military enlistment office requesting that she be sent to the front. She's not even like, I'm going to go in a support role. No, send me to Stalingrad. Let's go.
I'm going to be a spy. Nope. Hand me a rocket launcher and send me to the front lines. It's happening.
That's right. The request was denied several times. The military office referred to her illness. She had TB of the spine, like Chick Webb, actually. Oh! So something that this Russian fighter and Chick Webb have in common is they both have TB of the spine. And her age, because she was a doddering, drooling 36 at the time.
Right.
So what does she do, Claire? Does she go back to answering phones at the military school in Tomsk?
No, she doesn't do that. She's not that type of person.
She does not sink wailing into the ground, saying, this is the day I die.
She doesn't go back to her needlework.
She does not.
She doesn't scrub that oven till it's gleaming.
She's like, why have I done all of this housework? He's dead, and I can't even fight. She finally realizes, after all this time, housework is pointless. She's a modern woman. So she decides she's gonna buy her own fucking tank so she can go fight Nazis.
That is so... So, not only is she going vigilante, but she's got, somehow the resources to make that happen.
Yeah. Check this out.
How is this not a movie?
Exactly. Why is there no movie? She and her sister sold everything they owned. And I love that her sister was like, yes, tank, clearly this is the solution. Take my dining room table, that's fine.
I mean, when I said the thing about the rocket launcher and going to the front, I was joking.
That's why it's so amazing.
But she did something even more amazing than a rocket launcher. She got a whole tank.
So after they sold all their stuff, that it wasn't enough money. Then she realized that she could sell embroidery. Even during the war years, Claire, people like a nice frock, okay? That's valuable no matter what's happening in the outside world.
I bet you that the embroidery said fuck Nazi.
It did.
She was making little Etsy-style needle points that said fuck Hitler.
Yep.
Go to hell, Nazis.
That's right. She spent months making embroidered pieces at night after work. She still had a job. There's still a war going on, and she's still dedicated, right? So she's working all day. And then going home and doing needlework by candlelight, for months. By the spring of 1943, she had saved 50,000 rubles, which I didn't do a conversion, but that sounds like a huge amount of money even today.
I mean, one thing we can say, it's a lot of rubles.
That's many rubles. She transferred those 50,000 rubles, her entire life savings, plus her sister's money and money from all of the things that they used to own. She transferred them to the state bank. And after that, Mariya Oktyabrskaya sent a telegram to the Kremlin addressed to Stalin personally. And this is what it said. My husband was killed in action defending the motherland. I want revenge on the fascist dogs for his death and for the death of Soviet people tortured by fascist barbarians. For this purpose, I've deposited all of my personal savings, 50,000 rubles to the National Bank in order to build a tank. I kindly ask to name the tank Fighting Girlfriend and to send me to the front line as the driver of said tank. And everyone in town was like, oh my God, what did you do? You're calling out Stalin. Are you insane? Don't you know he's fucking evil? I mean, thank you, Comrade Stalin, for protecting the motherland. I am a loyal patriot. And they're like laughing at her in the bread line or whatever. She was the only one who believed she would receive an answer. And she did. Stalin thanked her and promised her that her request would be fulfilled. And it was. A T-34 medium tank named Fighting Girlfriend. Her name was painted on her turret, was made, and Mariya was enlisted to drive it.
So she somehow got them to sanction this.
Yes. She's like, this is what I want to do. And you know, this is a propaganda machine, right? That's a feel-good story for the ages.
They understood optics.
They're going to be American pigs in the 21st century telling this story. This is a great story. Thank you. By the time she got Stalin's answer, she was 38 years old. She enrolled in a 5-month tank training program.
As you do.
It was unusual. A lot of tank crews were essentially rushed straight to the front with minimal training. See also Battle of Stalingrad and sending people, just bodies, right? During her training, she proved she could drive, shoot, and throw a grenade as well as the next soldier. But of course, many of her fellow tankers, or like tank crew men, whatever they're called.
Tankos,
they saw it as a publicity stunt and a joke. And, you know, like men do, well, she's a woman, what's she doing driving a tank, right? This attitude, of course, changed when they saw her fight. So listen to this. She fought her first tank battle on the 21st of October, 1943. Are we keeping track? How many months is that? Half a year. Half a year after she had donated the money for the tank. She maneuvered her tank in intense fighting. She and her fellow crew members destroyed machine gun nests and artillery guns. When her tank was hit by gunfire, disregarding orders, she leapt out and effected repairs under heavy fire. Then she got back in and killed more Nazis. The battalion commander thanked the crew of the Fighting Girlfriend over the radio on successful fulfillment of the combat mission. She was promoted to the rank of sergeant immediately, and the tank crews started calling her Mother. A month later, on November 17th, she took part in an assault on German positions near Vitebsk, which, oh, by the way, that's where Marc Chagall was born. It has a museum dedicated to him I was like, ooh, the Marc Chagall Museum in his hometown. It's going to be this amazing. No, it's his house. It's his house where he used to live, which basically looks like a train depot from Downton Abbey. Just so you know, Marc Chagall lived in a house that looks like a train depot. And there's a museum to him there. Fighting Girlfriend broke through the enemy's defenses, destroyed a cannon and about 50 German soldiers and officers. The tank was hit in the track by artillery, and it rolled into a small ravine. It wasn't possible to tow the tank from the battlefield, and the crew decided not to leave her, which seems to have been an unusual decision. For 2 days, the crew fought off attacks with the tank's cannon, and they're like, imagine a tank laying on its side, and they're like, no, dude, climb in, the cannon's pointing the right direction. No, I think you can do it, somebody needs to climb in. Jeff, get in there. Jeff, Russians named Jeff, on an upcoming episode. For 2 days, the crew fought off attacks with the tank's cannon and their own weapons until it was possible to bring it out for repairs, and she was slightly wounded in that battle.
Just love that they were protecting this tank.
Fighting Girlfriend, man. You don't leave Fighting Girlfriend on the field.
No, you don't.
Okay, so 2 months later, in January 44, she fought in another night attack near Vitebsk as part of the Leningrad-Novgorod offensive, which is apparently a huge deal. Check it, coming soon on our World War II podcast. She drove Fighting Girlfriend through Nazi defenses and destroyed resistance in trenches and machine gun nests. Tank crew also destroyed a Nazi self-propelled gun, which sounds horrifying, and I'm really glad they did that. But then the tank was hit by a German anti-tank shell, again in the tracks, and was immobilized. She managed to repair the track. She climbed out again. She's not supposed to do that. She climbed out again. She's like, let's just fix it. It'll be fine. But this time, she was hit in the head by shell fragments from a mortar, and she lost consciousness.
Oh.
After the battle, she was transported to a Soviet military field hospital and then to the military hospital in Smolensk. A major from her regiment came to visit her. Remember, they used to call her Mother? He came bringing a letter from the Sons.
Oh.
I know. It broke my heart. They wish her all the best and promise to take vengeance, which is like exactly what you imagine. You're fighting a war, and it's not, we love you, be in the light, go with God. No, we will take vengeance. Don't worry. She was in a coma for 2 months before finally dying on March 15th, 1944. She was buried with military honors, and the following August, so August 1944, which is after VE Day, she was posthumously made a hero of the Soviet Union in recognition of her bravery in those battles around Vitebsk. She had a very short, it was a short run. She died almost a year after she made the donation. And she took a training course, right? So she fought for 6 months, maybe. But she made this huge impact. She's basically an old woman at this point. She's an old woman who jumps out of her tank and in the middle of the battle just fixes the tank and then gets back in, and everyone else is huddled, afraid. And how inspiring it must have been to watch her do that and to say, oh, well, if she can do it, I can do it. Let me also be that brave.
This reminds me a little bit of the Spite Houses episode you did a few weeks ago. There's something about sustained anger as motivation over a long period of time, that commitment to action, that I find so inspiring. When I'm angry, it's a very short-lived thing. It may drive me to action in the moment, but it's not something that gives me energy and sustains me over a long period of time. Mm-hmm. So I'm always so impressed by people, even though it's a silly thing. We talked about how with the Spite House, that's a long-term commitment to build an entire building or construct something extravagant to piss someone else off because they make you angry. Mine is just griping for 2 days and then I'm over it. But she reminds me of that same theme of this dedication to sell everything you own and then work over this long period of time and sacrifice so much to then be able to buy this tank to take your vengeance. That anger has to fuel you over this long period of time. It's very impressive.
I think it's the commitment for me that's impressive. And I'm really interested. It's easy, I think. The more I look for stories that inspire me, I find a lot of stories where anger is the motivation. These stories are no less inspiring because anger is the motivation, but how interesting to maybe find one where the motivation is love, right? Or where the motivation is care or compassion or empathy. So I'm excited to, keep exploring and, open up my search to find those stories. And also anger's easy fuel. It's basic. Anger is carbs, you guys. Okay.
Yeah.
It's easy fuel. It's available when you need it. You have it. You use it. It's great. But maybe we should try and focus more on being fueled by plants, protein, or fat. Or let's just be keto with our feelings, you guys. What happened to Fighting Girlfriend, you ask? And you did ask.
Yeah. What happened to Fighting Girlfriend?
The Nazis destroyed it in one of these battles. Maybe the one she died in, I'm unclear. Apparently, the history of objects is not interesting to Russian people, because I could find nothing really about the tank. Young tank operators, after the first one was destroyed, in memory of their mother, branded a newly issued tank Fighting Girlfriend. His tank was decommissioned after the battle for Minsk, but the crew replaced it with a new one and called it Fighting Girlfriend, and so the tradition lived on. The fourth tank, with the name Fighting Girlfriend, made it all the way to Berlin.
Oh, wow.
She has streets named after her. There's a monument on her last battlefield. She is an amazing human being. I love her very much. I'm so glad you let me talk about her. And your reaction when you heard what she did was exactly the reaction I had when I heard what she did.
It's incredible.
Hard to believe and super amazing. Mariya Oktyabrskaya, which sounds like October sky, which is nice. Oktyabrskaya.
Mariya is going in the pantheon of goddesses. Our It Chooses You goddess pantheon.
That's right.
Mariya.
Welcome.
Welcome, Mariya.
We have space on the altar for you. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you, Teresa. So if you're interested in researching more about Mariya or learning more about the sources we use for this episode, please check out our Patreon page.
Patreon.com/It Chooses You.
Thank you all so much for listening this week. We will be back on Sunday with a smidgen. We appreciate you being here and being a part of this podcast. We will see you soon. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Testing. Great. Thank you for listening to It Chooses You. Your hosts are Teresa Sparks and Claire Patton. Our theme song is by Bobby Dart. If you'd like to get in touch with us, drop us an email at itchoosesyouPodcast@gmail.com.